So over the past 2.5 days, we have looked from every conceivable angle, and as Michael Sheridan challenged us all to do in the opening plenary, with our imagination challenge at how we mainstream the work we're doing to mobilize savings and build financial capability between the major systems and organizations in our country that work with low and moderate income families. We've talked about everything in terms of how to do it, who to partner with, what your toolkit needs to be, except how to fund it. Many of you know that my background is in finance, and my favorite thing to do is to analyze a balance sheet. It drives people crazy. So I want you to know that a core commitment of CFED has always been to think about how do we find the kind of funding which is flexible, that helps you build out the innovations and work that you are doing. Last night's awards, the Platforms for Prosperity Awards, were all about how do we become our own seed capitalists to do this work. This afternoon, we are going to be announcing a new Platforms for Prosperity Fund, which is a source of flexible funding for a range of activities, from capacity building to community pilots to research, advocacy, and evaluation. So we can prove what works and we can spread it. The inaugural investor for this fund is JPMorgan Chase. And we are incredibly pleased to be expanding our partnership with them. Their support will increase the capacity of multi-service community-based organizations that want to expand their work doing financial capability and asset building. And I have to share a little story. For those of you who weren't on the dance floor late last night, like I was, you missed 3 women from Southeast Baltimore who were sitting at a table all the way in the back. And I said to them, "Why aren't you dancing?" And they said to me, and took out their piece of paper, "We're organizing a savings fund for all of our clients." Last night at 9 p.m. And I was so moved by this, I forced one of them to come on the dance floor with me. That's what we're talking about. That kind of excitement and desire to capture the moment with what you're learning. Throughout this process, we're all going to be learning together, and Chase will also enable us to capture and broadly share the lessons and effective approaches with stakeholders in their footprint and with the Assets and Opportunity Network. So it's my great pleasure to invite Sally Durdan to the stage to talk about JPMorgan Chase commitment to building capacity in their footprint. Sally is the Executive Vice President, and this is a great title, Head of Strategy and Analytics for Chase Consumer and Community Banking. She knows business, she knows finance, she knows strategy, and she spent more than 20 years in the financial services sector in multiple leadership roles. She also just told me she recently joined the board of LISC, and we have many of your compatriots in the room. And she's introduced me to a new child welfare agency that's quite stellar in New York City called Graham Windham, and has been inducted into the YWCA New York City Academy of Women Leaders. So with that, please join me in welcoming Sally to the stage.
Oh, thank you, Andrea, for your kind introduction and, more importantly, for your invaluable partnership with JPMorgan Chase. It's an honor to be representing JPMorgan Chase on this stage today. It's been a joy to see the new ideas, models, and the connections that have been made over the last few days, and I'm excited to see how all the work at this conference will ultimately enhance the field as we go forward. This event is a testament to Bob Friedman's forward-thinking vision, Andrea's leadership, and the hard work and dedication of all of you in this room today, and most especially the CFED staff. JPMorgan Chase is thrilled to be a sponsor of the Assets Learning Conference. We hope to build on your great work as JPMorgan Chase reaffirms its commitment to helping consumers save money, build assets, and expand economic opportunity. JPMorgan Chase has always been committed to helping consumers manage their daily financial lives and achieve their goals. That's part of our role as a financial institution, to provide reliable, easy-to-use financial products and services. But still, too many people lack the tools and resources they need to manage their daily financial lives. They struggle to weather unexpected emergencies and plan for their future. Instead, they rely on costly non-bank financial services like payday lenders and check cashing services. As a result, these consumers pay billions of dollars every year in fees and interest. Consumers struggle to save money for emergencies, and too many lack a credit score or an established credit history. One thing I've learned as a member of the board of LISC and learning about their financial opportunity centers is that a low credit score can make it not only difficult to gain access or approval for loans, but perhaps even more importantly, access to employment. And a lack of reliable and affordable financial services limits the ability to build assets and pursue greater life opportunities like higher education, small business growth, and eventually home ownership. This is a global problem. It affects families and communities around the world. But with the help of everyone in this room, JPMorgan Chase believes this is a solvable problem. Financial insecurity might begin with an individual, but we all know that it has ramifications for communities, employers, and our broader economy. In fact, research shows that financial insecurity reduces worker employability and productivity, increases the demand for public services, and undermines the long-term growth of our economy. All of you have done tremendous work to advance solutions and address this problem. We're proud to be your partners on many of these efforts. And so today, I'm very excited to share JPMorgan Chase's newest commitment to this movement. We are announcing a 2-year, $35 million financial capability strategy. This commitment builds on the $30 million we announced earlier this year to support the Financial Solutions Lab. The lab will be managed by the Center for Financial Services Innovation to identify, test, and scale innovative financial products and services to improve financial security. This new $35 million commitment will not only contribute funding, but also investments in the capacity of our partners. It will also support research, as Andrea was mentioning, to learn more about what's working in the field, what could be improved, and how we can continue to expand access to best-in-class financial products and services. Specifically, our commitment will provide grants to national and regional organizations dedicated to helping people increase savings, build their credit, and build assets. Working with our partners, many of whom are in this room, our approach will tackle these challenges in 3 ways. First, to innovate by investing in the development of affordable, easy-to-use, and technology-driven financial products and services designed to meet consumers' needs. Second, to expand the availability of these products and services around the world. And third, finally, to inform community partners and providers by sharing best practices to enhance financial capability efforts. I'd like to take a moment and highlight 2 specific examples of this approach. The first is our partnership with CFED. Last year, as Andrea mentioned, JPMorgan Chase supported the Assets and Opportunity Network Technical Assistance Fund to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of financial capability services nationally. To accelerate these capacity building efforts, today, we're proud to announce that we are investing an additional $1.75 million over 2 years to help create the Platforms for Prosperity Fund that Andrea mentioned. Thank you. This new initiative will support the ability of nonprofits to integrate financial capability strategies into social services programs such as workforce training, affordable housing, and healthcare. Today, there are nearly 80 federal existing programs serving low-income households. Many of these are universal programs like education and healthcare that are available to everyone. This existing infrastructure offers tremendous opportunity to scale financial capability initiatives by integrating asset building initiatives in the existing programs. CFED's fund will provide flexible funding to help community partners use these platforms to reach more vulnerable people with financial capability programs. It will help more than 40,000 low to moderate income individuals become more financially secure and improve the capacity of asset building organizations throughout the country. Another example of programs we'll support with this fund is LISC. As a board member of LISC, I've seen firsthand the impact of LISC's financial opportunity centers in communities. Through their workforce training, financial coaching, and credit building products, the centers equip families with the tools and motivation to boost their earnings and improve their financial security. With our $1 million grant to LISC, we'll be able to help more than 4,000 people connect to jobs, increase their net worth, and improve their credit. These are real results that are good for consumers' financial future and good for economic growth. In addition to these national programs, we're working with community partners across the country, including many of you in this room, partnering with groups like MoneyThink, EARN, and Neighborhood Trust to help more vulnerable households manage their daily financial lives, weather unexpected emergencies, and plan for their futures. You are all spearheading the financial capability movement. We're very excited about the work ahead, and we look forward to continuing to support you and your organizations as we join you on this important journey. Thank you all for all that you do to improve the lives of families across the country. We're honored to support your efforts, and we look forward to everything we will be able to accomplish together. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jennifer Brooks, and I'm the director of the Assets and Opportunity Network for CFED. Throughout the conference, we've been talking about platforms for prosperity. And most of the time, what we've been talking about are the systems and structures into which we can integrate financial capability and asset building approaches. For the remainder of this session, I want to call to mind a different sense of that word. A platform, in a political sense, is a set of values and actions that encompass a group's shared vision. For the remainder of this session, we're going to talk about our shared vision and about the power and the potential that we have when we articulate that vision and when we act on it. 8 years ago, at the 2006 Assets Learning Conference in Phoenix, Arizona, some of you who were probably at that conference will remember that participants at the closing plenary then had the opportunity to stand up and share what they thought was the most important thing for us to do as a field. Not a movement, not a network, we're talking about ourselves as a field. Many of you who spoke expressed the conviction that we needed to be better organized, both so that we could increase our efficacy as individual organizations, but also so that we could harness the power and passion for collective policy change. 6 years ago, or in the 6 years that followed, we had patient conversations with many, many leaders in the assets field to come really to a shared vision for what we now know as the Assets and Opportunity Network. The vision was for a network that would connect individuals and organizations in the assets field and multiply our collective impact. The Assets and Opportunity Network emerged as the answer to the call for both a way to speed up diffusion of innovative and effective practices, and also a means through which we could build a strong and engaged constituency that could advocate for policy change at the state, local, and federal levels. What came through those conversations was how critically important it was that a network be greater than the sum of its parts. Organizations were, and definitely still are, stretched thin. Participating in a network had to be worth it. It had to add value. It was also critically important that a national network be truly responsive to the needs on the ground and not just reflect the priorities of a single national organization or funder. Those two imperatives are ones that we at CFED, as the backbone organization for the Assets and Opportunity Network, come back to again and again. Our contribution to the Assets and Opportunity Network is to do the things that are really hard to do when you're in the trenches. So the things like working with the Network Steering Committee to articulate a vision and strategy, and supporting aligned activities so it's easier to row in the same direction. There are also things like establishing shared measurement practices, which is really exciting, so we can figure out what works and what doesn't, and also so that we can demonstrate our collective impact. There are also things, and finally, our other role is to build public will, relentlessly making the case for why assets matter, and advancing policy, whether that's walking the halls of Congress or creating opportunities to lift up the experiences of those outside of the Beltway so that we together can make systemic change. We're not there yet in terms of filling each of those backbone roles equally well. But on behalf of CFED, I want to say to everyone in this room that CFED is 100% committed to humbly supporting the Assets and Opportunity Network well into the future. Two years ago, on a stage very much like this one, we publicly launched the Assets and Opportunity Network. And in that time, while at the same time recognizing the true magnitude of our aspirations, we have made some important progress, and we have laid the foundation for even greater impact. The network's leadership, which includes the Network Steering Committee, along with 73 lead state, local, and tribal organizations, were critical to the achievement of each one of these accomplishments. I want to borrow a phrase from the book Tipping Point, which Malcolm Gladwell wrote almost 15 years ago, and talk about these leaders as the connectors, the mavens, and the salespeople. And they're the way that we, as a comparatively small group of people, can really have an outsized impact. Network lead organizations build bridges between disparate and isolated people and ideas. They're the mavens that connect us to new information and ideas. And among them are the salespeople who have those elusive traits that make people just want to listen to them. To share these accomplishments from the last 2 years and invite you all into this conversation, we have 6 network leaders who will come to the podium in turn, beginning with Lisa Forty. And then we're going to open it up to all of you to share your ideas for where the network should go next. So Lisa is chair of the Network Steering Committee. She's in the leadership of the California Asset Building Coalition, and her day job is as policy director of the Alameda County Department of Social Services. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you, Jen. I'm so pleased to be here with you all today. I'm the chair of the Network Steering Committee, which is the leadership body, as Jen said, of the Assets and Opportunity Network. And I've had the privilege of being involved in local, state, and now this national asset building coalition. So I'm really humbled. I know the expertise that's in this room, so I am pausing to appreciate the power and the wisdom that are here. Thank you all for being here. Our job as the steering committee is to bring the perspectives of state and local leaders from across the country to help shape the direction and the priorities for the network. You'll have a chance to do that this afternoon, and I really hope you won't be shy. The network is only 2 years old, and yet we've dramatically expanded our reach, deepened impact, and learned a significant amount about what makes movement networks tick. We've more than doubled general membership to over 1,600 organizations. We've increased the number of lead organizations to 73, covering 40 states and the District of Columbia. These groups are the face of the network in each geography. They connect stakeholders in their communities to network resources and opportunities to learn and advocate. And they ground the network in the lived experiences of those on the front lines. In the past 2 years, the network has deepened connections and relationships among leaders nationally and sparked formation of new state and local coalitions across the country, from Connecticut and Pennsylvania, Indiana, Idaho, Nevada, and Sacramento. And we've built the infrastructure to organize, learn from, and leverage a constantly expanding slice of the asset building field. The network is already demonstrating progress towards its goals, both to lift up innovative and effective asset building approaches and to build a coordinated constituency for policy change. We can see our impact on federal policy, on state policy, and in the way that financial capability and asset building services are delivered at a local level, by sharing knowledge and learning from each other. To describe this impact, we have 4 network leaders who've been involved with these victories to give you a sample of what we've achieved together. First, I'd like to ask Dedrick Thomas to come up and share some of our success in federal policy.
Thank you, Lisa. My name is Dedrick Thomas, and I'm a part of Indiana's Asset and Opportunity Network and a member of the network's Federal Policy Working Group. In 2013, the network developed a shared federal policy agenda that responds to the issues that network members prioritized. It includes policies to protect consumers, enable savings, expand tax incentives, and integrate financial capability approaches into government programs. Last year, network members met with nearly 200 federal policymakers in Congress and in the administration. And just yesterday, 400 of you from 45 states met with your elected officials. And I just want to share 2 important federal policy priorities that we can be proud of. The first is standing shoulder to shoulder with anti-poverty advocates to defend states' right to support low-income savers receiving food assistance rather than penalize them for trying to get ahead. This year, the Congress reauthorized a farm bill that affirmed the decision by 35 states to eliminate their SNAP asset test and maintain the availability for other states to follow suit. The second action is influencing the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau's oversight of the debt collection industry. At the beginning of this year, the network brought the consumers' perspectives into the dialogue. We submitted a comment letter that urged the Bureau to stop unfair and abusive debt collection practices. Since then, the CFPB has been building a case that more regulation is needed. It published a comprehensive research on the debt collection industry. It surveyed consumers directly about their experiences, and it brought a successful case against one company for its illegal practices, which resulted in returning $5 million to consumers. The Asset and Opportunities Network will be there at each subsequent step in the process as the Bureau moves forward on debt collection rules to make sure they strengthen protection for consumers. And next, to talk about state policy, I'd like to welcome to the stage Brent Kakisako.
So thank you, Derek. Aloha. I think that wasn't loud enough. Aloha. Thank you. My name is Brent Kakisako, and I am humbled to be up here to speak on behalf of the Ho'ovaivai Network out in Hawaii. But first, stepping back, Collectively in 2013, network lead organizations and their coalitions educated more than 1,000 state policymakers and worked with those policymakers to introduce more than 70 bills and 25 regulatory policy changes. Of that number, 35 became law and are now improving the financial security in communities across the country. So give yourselves a hand. Last year, Hawaii was one of 2 states, Illinois being the other, to eliminate the asset test in our cash welfare or TANF program. It was, I'm fortunate to be up here, but it was truly a collaborative effort that began by collecting stories from families on the ground to learn what they were struggling with, but also what worked well. Families clearly articulated that wealth was more than just financial, that wealth included relationships with family, relationships with place, relationships with culture. The name of our network actually comes from the idea that when a community has water, it was considered wealthy because it could take care of themselves. Families also specifically talked about the disincentive that asset limits posed in terms of their ability to build financial assets to achieve their vision of genuine wealth. From these stories, the Ho'ovaivai Network worked with legislators, state and county agencies, community-based organizations, financial institutions, and even educational institutions to address this injustice. It took 5 years to make the change, but through the collaborative efforts of the Ho'ovaivai Network, almost 9,000 TANF recipients across the state of Hawaii can now build financial assets without fear or worry that they will lose critical support to achieve their vision of genuine wealth. Thank you. Next, I'd like to introduce Laura Vargas to speak about financial service delivery.
Hello. Thank you, Brent, for that introduction. My name is Laura Vargas, and I am a member of the steering committee for the Nevada Asset Building Coalition and also Opportunity Alliance. As you've heard, improving the way services are delivered for under-resourced people, this is a core value of the Assets and Opportunity Network. In 2013, fully half of all the network's lead organizations focused on doing just that. They integrated financial capability and asset building approaches into a range of public systems and structures. Those systems range from K-12 education to state and local agencies, and even to private sector employers. For the past 9 months, my organization, the Community Service Agency, has been participating in a peer group with Head Start programs across the country. Together, we have been exploring ways to integrate financial capability approaches into our work with Head Start staff, parents, and children. The program has achieved a critical change in staff attitudes, whereby they now have the confidence as well as the tools to effectively talk to parents about their finances. And the importance of this work will extend beyond the 600 Head Start families served by the program in Reno. The experiences and lessons learned by all the peer group participants will be used by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services to improve Head Start programs nationally. At this point, I'd like to invite Cynthia Zwick to talk about sharing knowledge.
Good afternoon. My name is Cynthia Zwick, and I'm part of the Arizona Assets Alliance, and I co-facilitate with Donna Gallagher the network's learning group on coalition building. Not only have we made tangible improvements to our policies and programs in the past 2 years, we have also laid the groundwork for future sessions and success. Today, we have an infrastructure to communicate and coordinate with the asset building field, which truly didn't exist prior to 2012. We now have a way to find out what it is that we are able to communicate and how to communicate that with you. We know what our collective priorities are. We know what we know so that we can share that information and the knowledge that we've gained, and we know what it is that we need in order to be even more effective in our work. We have devised ways to learn from each other, which we are continually testing, refining, and making more effective. In the past 2 years, the network has hosted 3 peer learning groups, 2 virtual training sessions, a number of statewide workshops, numerous webinars and small group discussions, and we've matched individual lead organizations with technical assistance providers to help them solve concrete problems. Hopefully you've taken advantage of those services. And though the network's partnership with CFED, through the network's partnership, we have created opportunities for network members to do in-depth group learning on state policy advocacy, saving innovation, and integrated service delivery. In the survey that many of you took prior to coming to this conference, more than 2/3 of you said that the support you needed from national intermediaries like the network was help connecting to the learning community, which is a response that affirms that we're on the right path. So in the coming year, we commit to making sure the network's peer learning opportunities respond to your needs and ideas, and we commit to expanding and deepening the connection between network members. So please join us and continue to be involved. And I'd like to invite Dave Snyder, the Network Steering Committee member, to come up.
Hello everybody. I'm Dave Snyder. I'm the coordinator for the Minnesota Asset Building Coalition and a member of the A&O Network Steering Committee. I'm really proud of the great work that all the A&O network members are doing. And I'm also sad that Gloria Steinem couldn't join us today. Actually, when I told my mother that I was going to be on the stage with Gloria Steinem, she told me to thank Miss Steinem for helping her not to lose her mind in the 1970s. And she actually wrote a letter. She's talking about how, as a single mother who really wanted to pursue a career in academics, she faced shame and discrimination and isolation from every corner, and she still went on to pursue her dreams and is now teaching philosophy, and that her life had been hounded and haunted by gender discrimination until the feminist movement, with women like Ms. Steinem at its front, helped millions of women like my mother to give it a name, to give that discrimination and oppression a name, and to shine a light on a collective path towards a more fair society. We're still walking that path, but I know we've made great progress, and my mom's a testimony to that. We know that economic oppression haunts our clients and our communities' lives. We know it. We deal with it every day. So I think that one contribution that we can all make and are making towards this movement for economic justice is to make sure that our organizations are places not only where people can come for help, immediate help, but also where people can have their own experience reframed and have a light shown on the economic oppression that they're struggling with, where we can shine a light on a path for them to be collectively involved in finding a solution. I think another way that we can contribute to this movement is by standing shoulder to shoulder with powerful allies. So that's why I'm really excited that earlier this summer, our Network Steering Committee approved a brand new way to affiliate with the Assets and Opportunities Network. Now we will have network allies. Network allies are national organizations and networks that are kindred spirits in the fight for economic justice and in the belief that financial capability and assets are critical to achieving that goal. These new alliances will allow us to publicly affirm our commitment to and support for shared goals, to build relationships locally with groups that may not have worked together in the past, and ultimately to create an echo chamber of voices working to increase economic opportunity through expansion of asset-based strategies. We're honored to have an inaugural group of network allies standing with us today, including the NAACP, PolicyLink, the Credit Builders Alliance, the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights, and the National Council of La Raza. Each of these groups brings the network together with important constituencies. Over the next few months, we will seek to build alliances with additional groups as a way to increase our power and impact. Today, I want to lift up one particular partnership with the NAACP. This partnership will connect their local and state units with local and state asset building leaders and practitioners in the Assets and Opportunities Network. I'd like to invite Dedrick Mohammed to come up to the podium to speak about this partnership and about NAACP's commitment to these issues. Dedrick is the Senior Director of Economic Programs for the NAACP, the nation's oldest and largest civil rights organization. In that role, Dedrick focuses on financial and economic education, fair lending, and diversity and inclusion efforts. Dedrick's previous experience includes time with Reverend Al Sharpton's National Action Network, United for a Fair Economy, and the Institute for Policy Studies. Please welcome Dedrick Mohammed. Thanks.
Thank you, and first, let me bring greetings from our new president and CEO at the NAACP, Cornell William Brooks, who I know wishes could have been here today, but I think is traveling from New York to here and then back to Tennessee for a state convention. And before I start my formal remarks, I also want to give a shout out to Gloria Steinem, who could not be here today, but whose work has been a motivational and influential force in my life and the work I currently do. I remember reading her book, Revolution from Within, at about the age of 14 or 15, and how important it was to the development of my socioeconomic analysis and to me as I developed into a young man, to read about how advancing feminism and its inherent link to social justice was not just a policy or a political struggle, but a personal one that we must engage in our day-to-day life. So, thank you. And so, though Ms. Steinem is not here physically, her impact is clearly here in the room and part of the work we do. Speaking of great and influential women, I also want to thank Andrea Levere and the whole CFED family, men included, for having me here and for having my economic NAACP team at this convention. Could you all stand from the NAACP economic team? I just want to recognize them. Like I'm sure for all of us in this room, some of us are lucky enough to be at conferences like this and be on stage, but we know we have a staff and a whole bunch of volunteers behind us who are really making this asset development work occur. And you know, for the NAACP Economic Department, it was about 3 years ago when I sat down with Bob Friedman and Andrea Levere with our former president, Ben Jealous, discussing with them how and why the NAACP and CFED should be working together. We talked about how economic inequality is currently and always has been at the foundation of racial inequality in this country, how the Great Recession has worsened the stagnation of racial income inequality and deepened racial wealth inequality, how the civil rights struggle for racial equality in this country has always been about economics, and how in the 21st century, asset development for all is a centerpiece of the centuries-old struggle to build a more perfect union. And out of this meeting, we invited CFED to our training of trainers for our economic state chairs. We, once a year, have NAACP leaders from all across the country come to the Financial Freedom Center, and we work with them to talk about what the next year's work going to be in terms of economic empowerment. And we worked with them so our units on the ground could learn about the vast literature and networks of asset development advocates that is at the heart of CFED's work. We discovered that some of our units were already engaged in these asset building coalitions and made it mandatory for all of our units to receive micro grants to engage in these type of coalitions. Through working with CFED, we developed a relationship with the Northwest Area Foundation, where together we did a 5-city tour, having community forums with asset development leaders and with African American community leaders to see and hear for ourselves how on the ground asset development programs are reaching and are not reaching the African American community. I was amazed at how impactful this was in the work of the NAACP Economic Department, just giving us the opportunity to be on the ground with our local units, put forth a great amount of work in a part of the country that the NAACP is not known for being greatly active in, the Northwest. So out of just about a year later, we were able to work with our local units on great fights in Washington State around developing a $15 minimum wage, a living wage as a citywide Seattle minimum wage. Out of this work with CFED, we were able to connect with our Oregon chapter in Portland to work with them on gentrification issues and stop a project that was going to help further exclude and marginalize the middle class and poor into a project that put forward $20 million for affordable housing and made sure that minority contractors were also part of the development. And we also managed to deal with issues around procurement practices and making sure diversity was part of the billions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars that are happening in transportation budgets across the country. All of this work were derivatives of the work we started with CFED. Now, community asset development is at the center of the NAACP Economic Department, and we are engaged with many of the sponsors who make this conference and this work possible, including Wells Fargo, Bank of America, and the Ford Foundation. We are in conversation with Citibank and engaging key local units around their asset development initiatives, and are in conversation with JPMorgan Chase Foundation for the NAACP to be part of the previously announced and important financial capacity work we just heard about today. So this afternoon, I've been telling you about the deeply important work that has come from an informal relationship with CFED. I can't wait. I hope I get an invitation to come back in 2016 and share with you all the work that has come from being officially an Asset and Opportunity Network ally. We are proud to be one of the first Asset and Opportunity Network allies and look forward to working with all of you in the room who are all allies in this struggle to bridge the economic divide that threatens the economic well-being of us all, and as we have seen in Ferguson, Missouri, threatens to further tear apart the delicate social fabric that keeps this country together. I just want to say one other thing that I'd be remiss as a civil rights activist to not note. I want to recognize the protesters as well outside who were fighting to make sure that the country doesn't continue to fail the fastest growing part of our society and of our social fabric, immigrants. And I know the NAACP supports comprehensive immigration reform, and I know that in asset development work, if we don't make sure that immigrants, newer racial minorities to this country are part of asset development and financial security, if we don't make sure that minority groups like African Americans and Native Americans who've been here for centuries but have been excluded from asset development and financial security, if we're not all part of the financial and asset development work, we know that this work will never achieve the goals that we hope. So again, thank you CFED for giving me a time to share our partnership, and thank to all of you in this room who are working to advance economic opportunity and financial security for the entire nation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dedrick. We are so thrilled to be allies with the NAACP in this movement for economic justice. So while I think everybody in this room and my mom and I are disappointed that Gloria Steinem isn't here, I think that we can all be inspired by lessons from her years of activism and her role in the feminist movement. And that's about the importance of participation and partnerships. It's about empathy towards other people who share a struggle and a vision for justice, and about the power of people who are coming together to fight for a common purpose. Groups like the NAACP are trusted members of their communities, just like you are all trusted members of your communities, and share important goals with our network. So with partnerships, as in coalition work, what you get out of it is in direct proportion to what you put in. So we have to bring our strength and our vibrancy to the table. For the success and the relevance of the Assets and Opportunity Network, we need the active participation, voice, and leadership of everyone in this room, as well as your partners, allies, and constituents back home. For those of you who took the pre-conference survey, you've already started. You shared what you think is most important for us to focus on collectively. 9 out of 10 of you said that it's important for us to increase the resources that are available to service providers. We know that demand for services has risen while the resources to do this work has not. We know that the network has a role to play in making the pie bigger, but we don't have the magic answer. We need the ideas and inspiration of the people in this room to help us make that happen. You also said how important it is to lift up the voices and experiences of people who are asset poor. For some members, organizing, engagement, and involvement of their communities are their top priority. We want to support and promote that, for empowerment is a critical factor in the success of our movement. A majority of you said that collectively we should also focus on learning from each other, on raising awareness of our issues by telling our stories to the media, policymakers, and stakeholders. And you said we should coordinate on federal, state, and local policy advocacy, just like many of us did yesterday on our Hill visits, and like many of us are doing at home every day in our communities where we're building the base and the capacity for policy wins. Now, we'd like to hear directly from you about how we should do that. So for the next 15 minutes, we are going to ask for the opportunity for you to share with everyone in this room, specific or broad, your ideas for how the network should move forward over the next several years. So we actually have 2 microphones set up on either side of the room. My flight attendant directions. And what we'd like is to invite you to line up behind the microphones and to share with us an observation that you have about the network, an idea to increase our impact, or a gap that you think the network should fill. This feedback is really important to shape our direction and priorities, so like I said before, please don't be shy. I have the facilitator's trick of being able to wait through uncomfortable pauses, so I will stand up here until people come up and talk. So please, don't be shy. Come up, share with us your ideas, your questions. I imagine people have burning things to say. Please start, yes, and introduce yourself and where you're from, please.
Yes, good afternoon, Ms. Forti. My name is Luis Medina. I work with Community Action Partnership of Kern. We're in Bakersfield, California, and since you invited us to comment on gaps, I'm going to.
Bring it.
I noticed that the California Asset Building Coalition is very active in the northern part of California and in the southern part of California, but there's no activity apparently in the Central Valley, which has a lot of need and is an area that has high poverty, a high rate of undocumented immigrants, and it has been hit hard by the drought. So that's a gap that was very obvious from the map, and I would ask, that you consider maybe expanding your footprint to the Central Valley. Also, I wanted to highlight that what I noticed as noticeably missing from the plenary sessions and the breakout sessions was a discussion about the affordable housing crisis that is impacting America's poor and middle-income families. The mortgage crisis caused many to foreclose, thus making them go back to renting and saturating the rental housing market. Meanwhile, rich so-called corporate landlords have been snatching up foreclosed properties and turning them into rentals. Limited rental property supply and geographically and emotionally absent landlords who charge high rates are causing many to deplete their assets on rent, to live doubled up, or become homeless altogether. This is a problem that needs fixing as part of ensuring financial empowerment, I'm sorry, I'm getting really nervous, for the poor and middle income persons we serve. So I'm wondering, what can CFED do about this?
So thank you for the points. First, I think your point about the Central Valley of California is really important. I think as a theme, we've been hearing a lot about the need to focus more on rural communities across the country and really lift up the innovative practices that are happening in rural America. So I appreciate and applaud your point. Thank you for saying that. And then I know that a lot of people here have actually in the survey prioritized affordable housing came up as a really big issue. So I'm not going to stand up here and give answers to all the questions because I don't want to speak for the expertise in the room, but I applaud that you've brought that challenge to us because I absolutely think affordable housing is one of the most immediate crisis points that we need to address as a field. So thank you. I absolutely agree.
Thank you. Can I get your business card later?
Sure, come and find me.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Jackie Hutchinson from People's Community Action Corporation in St. Louis, Missouri. Missouri is one of the 4 states on the map that does not have a lead organization for the network. And my question is, can you come to Missouri or send someone to Missouri to help us make the case for a lead organization and help us realize that it is a priority help us identify the organization statewide. And not only in Missouri, but the other 3 states that may be as embarrassed as I am. And so there are many of us doing the work on, throughout the state, but none has stepped up to be the lead organization.
Thank you for asking, and please don't be embarrassed. It's as much our charge, and so yes, we are happy to help anyone who wants to forge a lead local or lead state organization. Please, thank you for asking, and yes, absolutely, we would help. Other side.
Hi, I'm Janet Catracci. I'm from the Community Foundation of Tompkins County in Ithaca, New York. I've talked to a few Cornellians here. I know there's some of you in the room. Woohoo! I came, this is the first time at this event for me, and as a funder, we fund a really broad range of areas as a community foundation. And for any of you who are funders, know that I look to the applicant to sort of sell to me those key points that I can bring back to my board or to my review team and to educate the community, because we provide an enormous amount of informational and relational services to the community. And this is a really simple question, but that little Allstate notebook that you handed out the other day, I've filled it. I've written through half of the book through so much that I've learned in the past 3 days. I'm not sure how I'm going to get all that information into sort of my local funders group, my board, all the people I'm going to report back to. I want a 1 to 2 page, fact sheet of what everyone has learned and the takeaways from this conference that I can share quickly and easily, and I can check in with all our grantees to say, are you doing this? Because I don't know the answer for all of our grantees. And that would be just a really basic service. Maybe you already do it. I'd love to hear whether you do.
That's a great idea. CFED, there's a Google Docs site for people to share notes from the conference, so maybe that can help function as that, but that's a great suggestion. Okay, and we'll do that, Kim is saying. We'll do that, cool. Hi, Hillary.
Hi, Lisa. I'm Hillary Abell with Project Equity in Oakland, California. And an observation and a gap that I see the network could help fill. Was really excited by some of the conversations I was part of during the conference about the coming back together, perhaps, of work and job conversations with asset building conversations. And with Project Equity and work I've done previously, we're working at that intersection through the model of worker-owned businesses and helping to build those, and actually working on building an ecosystem that can make those more normal, not so niche, and easier to do. And in the wake of the Great Recession, there's been just a groundswell of interest in this model that wasn't there before. So we have this unprecedented opportunity to make it relevant to low-income communities and to more people in a way that it hasn't been until now. And so a gap that I see that the network could fill would be to help the asset building field become part of that conversation. And we know that cooperatives are not a magic bullet, they're not the solution to everything, but I did hear several cooperative models held up in this conference, like Rock USA, and Freelancers Union isn't fully a cooperative, but it has some cooperative aspects to it. And there are many other out there, so I feel like this network could potentially play a role in helping others in the asset building field learn about this and other approaches to combining sort of workforce solutions and asset building solutions in a way that can help revitalize our economies.
Awesome, thank you, great idea.
Yeah. Hi, Deborah Wiles, and I'm a board member, and it's amazing the comment that this young lady just made, because I want to just expand upon that and say a part of what's a gap is a very conscious effort to bring people who are clients into the network as people who work within this field. Mm-hmm. And so that idea about the integration of workforce development with the work of the network and with asset building is critical, with an eye to ensuring that this room diversifies even more, and that people who are working with, who we work on behalf of, become a part of this work. I think Shanita, is a good example of that. And I just want to put a plug in for 2 of the young people. Shanita and Karen are both looking for jobs. So, one is here. She should have many people's cards as she leaves this room. So that is critical. If we're going to grow this field and really make it have the kind of deep impact, it's not just People have to be a part of it. It's not working on behalf, it's building so that they are doing this work as we are doing this work. Thank you.
Thank you. I couldn't agree more. Thank you. Hi, Lucy.
I'm Lucy Gorham from the UNC Center for Community Capital and the North Carolina Assets Alliance. There was so much rich information shared in all of the workshops, and one thing, you know, we only get to scratch the surface, and there are so many critical issues of moving ahead to scale and sustainability. So one thing I would really love to see is a series of case studies or profiles, maybe we'd call them profiles in innovation, that would really dig a little deeper with some of these really innovative programs and products that could be shared.
Turning to the other side. Yes, hi.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Devin Stubblefield, and I'm with Faith Finance Center in the state of Washington. And one of the things that I think could be a gap that could be filled is working with the faith community. Most of the people that we're talking about over the last 3 days, the low to moderate income, the people in crisis, one of the first places they go to is to their local church or their temple or their mosque or wherever it is they worship. And a lot of these faith leaders don't simply have access to the same resources that we do as the Assets and Opportunities Network. So I think that we could really take advantage of really reaching out to the faith communities to give them some resources, because a lot of the people that go to the faith-based organizations may never end up in some of the agencies that are represented here today, but that represents a huge part of the population that needs the help.
Great suggestion. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Steve Debb with the Democracy Collaborative. I'll echo Hillary Abell's comments about cooperatives and community ownership. I also want to suggest that another potential space the network could move into involves the intersection between health and community development. So the Federal Reserve of San Francisco has put a lot of energy into that area. And hospitals under the Affordable Care Act now have to do community health needs assessment every 3 years. The largest determinant of poor health is in fact poverty. And so I think there's a real opportunity for partnerships with hospitals specifically.
Very exciting. Thank you. Great. Hi.
Thank you for a wonderful, again, as always, a magnificent conference. My name's Ken Brown. I'm with IDAs and Shelters in New York City. I wanted to first of all applaud what Devin said, because that was my point exactly. I think it's a huge failing that we don't have more representation of the ecumenical community, exactly for the reasons that Devin said. That's one thing. The other question that I have is, the banking industry continues to evolve, change, contract, and it seems to me, or I feel, that there isn't sufficient attention given to the continuing relevance, pertinence, applicability of the Community Reinvestment Act, the recently liberated from litigation Responsibility in Banking Act. I just think that our relationship with the banking community has to be more explicit, particularly the regulations that affect the work that we do, and particularly the incentives and compulsions that the banking community has to participate with us.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Althea Saunders Renier. I'm with Bon Secours Community Works in Southwest Baltimore. I was that group of 3 women who was trying to facilitate a new program, a savings program for the families we serve. But more importantly, and again, thank you for a wonderful conference from which we have a lot of takeaways, and just wish we could get enough staff so that we could do all this wonderful work. But the families we serve, one thing is we have a large homeless population in Baltimore, and we do eviction assistance. But one of the things I'm looking at, and we are on the edge of that because we work with families and all that comes with it, but is the utility crisis that puts families into homelessness. We talk about moving families forwards, but utilities is, and we've seen this in Detroit, it's a very big issue. It's an inhumane issue when families have no water. And it is a problem that forces families to lose their home through tax liens that other folks get to buy and then rent it to them where it's not affordable and stick that water bill on the family. So utilities is an issue that maybe we should look at as we try to work with the families. Thank
Great
you.
idea. Thank you. Hi, Sandra.
Hey, Lisa. So first, I'm just, thrilled that you're up there. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
So there's two things that I want to say. The first one is to echo what my colleague said at lunch earlier this morning about we have staff members who are eligible for the programs that we deliver to our clients. And we really have to do something about how we view professionalism in our field. And we've got two young women who want to come into the field, and how do we look at them and say, you'll be able to pay off your student loans, you'll be able to have a retirement account, you'll be able to feed your family, if we're not holding a standard in our community-based organizations that really pays people well. And I know that there's a layered, I'm not saying I have the answer, but I think that you all are uniquely positioned to be able to continue to bring it forward. I don't think we should have an expectation that if you do this work, that you should be poor. I'm sorry, broke. Not poor, budget constraint, right? And I think that there's a multi-layer approach, and you guys are uniquely positioned to do something about that. And then I know Andrea might be tired of me saying it, but I'm gonna say it anyway. I do believe if we can't get rid of the asset means test, if we can begin to have the conversation about matching it at least half to the gift tax exclusion that the wealthy can use to reduce their taxable estates, I think we stand a better chance of helping people actually move toward moving off of public benefits. I tell people all the time, I'm not in the business of helping poor people be more comfortable being poor. There's only 3 things you can do: make more, spend less, or a combination of the two. We're suppressing their ability with the asset means test. This year, folks can give away $14,000 with no gift tax consequences, but our savers can only save $2,000. I think you guys can again start to work from that area. I can't do it because I don't have enough money in my bail account to do any policy and advocacy, but I think you guys can.
Thanks, Sandra. Hi.
Hi, my name is Jade Shipman Bevins. I'm with EARN in San Francisco. I have an idea that I'm thinking maybe y'all could implement. Basically, there are a lot of folks working to create scalable financial education and financial capability platforms, many of them online. And I think there's a lot of for-profits working in this space as well, and a lot of folks, whether that's conventional lenders or banks, et cetera. And I think sometimes the tone of the tools that are being created is inadvertently exclusionary toward low-income folks and in some instances even moderate-income folks. And I'm thinking that what if there were some kind of document or something that was created that could be circulated to the folks who are creating these modules and so forth that would give best practices for how to communicate with low-income folks, how to make the financial education really relevant across the income spectrum, because I get the feeling that the exclusionary tone is not intentional, and that maybe that would be a nice place to just sort of drop in some best practices and advice that would help it be more broadly applicable, so that we don't have to build things from the ground up ourselves quite as much, so that things are more universal.
Good point. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Laura Rosen with the Center for Public Policy Priorities. My organization does state policy advocacy, and what I've noticed is that while it seems like the field has attracted more funding nationally at the state level to support state policy work, we haven't seen kind of growing interest, particularly from national foundations, to fund the work or just maintain the work. And so I think that there's a lot of opportunities at the state and local level for the network to help state groups find and sustain funding for policy work, and particularly because foundations cannot a lot of times support policy work, that we have a need to identify that funding.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's A shared sentiment. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. My name is Teresa Navarro. I'm from Reno, Nevada, and I am part of the Kickstart program, where we are providing services to kindergartners with a $50 college account and a $529 account for $15. That's the job that I do to get paid. But my job is my passion is I'm an activist. I have been for 45 years in Reno. Actually, I was born an activist. That's what my father says. I've been fighting since I was about 7 years old. But there's a couple of, what bothers me is as an activist, I work on different issues. I work on modifications for homes. I'm working a lot with the banks right now, helping people, helping families not to lose their home. And I didn't feel like there was a lot about, you know, the modification from homes, from the banks, that we have so many, you know, representatives from banks here, and I think that that was a very important issue. Because, you know, I work with just families that don't understand, especially Latino families, and as being a bilingual person. And I just, you know, just like last week, I helped a family, they had it on a short sale, and they didn't even know that they could modify. And they didn't know how to talk to the bank. So I called the bank for them, we got them involved, we stopped the short sale, we're now working on a modification for them. They're very excited. I mean, they, you know, the family was crying, didn't know what to say, didn't know what to do, don't know how to pay me. I always tell people, if you're gonna pay me, I always ask them, please vote. Because the only way I'm gonna make changes in this country is to vote. So that's how I get my payment back from people that I'm involved with. The other thing too that I wanted to touch on is we talk a lot about, you know, the people, the underprivileged, and the word poor that we've used, the term, you know, there have a lot of other issues just besides asset building. And, you know, when you work with kids, I work with a lot of anti-gang kids. So I try to keep kids out of gangs on the local level. You know, I work a lot in the Black and the brown community in Nevada. I'm working with them to try to stay out of there. When those issues are going on in their home, the gentleman that wrote the book, I'm sorry, I forgot his name, but he made such a great statement about we need to look at the overall thing and the things that are actually bothering these families and to get to some of the grassroots things. So I just wanted to make that one point, and thank you very much.
Great point. Thank you.
Hey there, so I'm Romy from Newark, New Jersey, and I'm interested if there's a pipeline for young leaders and folks who want to, you know, be able to get some professional development or be part of a fellowship program in the asset development field. So I'll leave it at that.
Good suggestion. Thank you. Good question. Anyone else? Okay, so our time is close to up anyway, so perfect timing. I really appreciate all of the candid suggestions and feedback, and I'm sure CFED staff do too. I think it helps both make the conference better in years to come, but then also guide the network, and it's really important to have that honest dialogue, I think, to make this work relevant and successful. So there are a few more things I'm going to ask you to do. The first is that if you haven't yet, we'd like you to join the network. It's pretty simple. You can fill out postcards that are on your table, or you can join online. And you know, like I said before, if we don't hear your voice and if we don't have your participation, then we don't have your wisdom to guide us. And so we really encourage you to join and to both benefit from and inform the network. The other thing is to connect. There are lead organizations in most of your states, not all of your states, but we'll work on that. And you can find them on the network website or on the experts directory. So you can find out who's working on the issues that you care about. So you might have resources that you could look at, both of people that are in your backyard or people who might be in a state next to you or across the country who can support you in your efforts. And I think the network really serves as that kind of a clearinghouse. So I hope that you'll connect. And third and last, I'd like to ask you to commit to participating in at least one of the network learning opportunities and one advocacy opportunity within the next year. You can make a commitment here today and we'll help remind you, but this is a commitment both for your own professional development and learning, and then also to be an advocate, which we know that all of you are in your day-to-day work in the communities that you work in, and so we'd like to just capture that and name that and have it be part of a larger movement. So we ask for your commitment today for learning and advocacy with us as a coalition. So to close, I want to just remind you that this is your network. You own it, you make it up, and just to ask for your participation and say that your engagement is what creates this vibrant and effective community. And so I will close, and I'd like to thank and acknowledge Jen Brooks for her leadership and ask her to come back to the stage. Thank you.
Well, right back at you. So thank you, Lisa. Thank you, all of our great leaders who came up and they shared some of the stories of our successes. Thank you to all of you in the room, network members and soon-to-be network members. We can't wait to hear what else you want to do together. I now have the honor to introduce Bob Friedman. Bob founded CFED when I was in the 4th grade, so I think that his perspective on the world was probably a little bit broader than mine. But you know, I can look back and I can sort of imagine what it was like to be a grown-up in 1979. And it was really, I think, a world that was filled with injustice and turmoil. 1979 was the year of the Iran hostage crisis. It was the year of the 3 Mile Island nuclear accident. The country was recovering from a deep economic recession, and we were right at the beginning of the ever-widening economic inequality that we face today. So I'm sure Bob saw all of that, but he also saw potential and he saw opportunity. He founded CFED with a belief that each of us has the potential to meaningfully contribute to the economy. Bob has created an enduring organization, and for my job, I am thankful for that. But I think much more importantly, Bob helped to create this field. Bob's title at CFED is General Counsel and Chair of the Board, but for me, his additional titles include Mentor and Lodestone, and really a source of inspiration to be generous and humble and thankful. I believe in assets in part because I believe in Bob. Let's bring him to the stage.
If I had any sense, I would just sit down. I love this session. I love the people in this room. How can you not believe in this movement and these people? Everyone you run into is more interesting and active and visionary than the next. I don't see how we can lose, but we have a lot to do. I want to talk about the promise of our movement. I want to talk about growing equity in both senses, in terms of growing wealth and growing fairness, because I think that's what we're doing. We're not talking about redistribution. We're not talking about a zero-sum game. We're talking about bringing the vision and wisdom and the common genius of the American people into the mainstream. I want to talk about people, promise, money, and movement. And then I want to close with Gloria as my speechwriter. First about people. We, and it is the large we, have proven over the last 35 years as though it needed to be proven, that given a reasonable opportunity, low income, even very resource-constrained people, and therefore the middle class will save, start businesses, buy and keep homes, go to college, create an economic future for themselves, their families, their communities, and the country. We have hundreds of thousands of proof points for that. Now, we just have to get to millions. And it's merely an additional, just new additions. I would like to add, on the basis of this conference, to those normal litany of asset paths, citizenship, cities for citizenship, 8.5 million legal residents who could dramatically increase their economic well-being by being citizens, and all the people who deserve to be citizens. Most of us came here. Only the Native Americans were here. And assistive technology, people with disabilities. You know, the whole definition of people with disabilities is inability to engage in substantial gainful activity. It's absurd. You know, think Stephen Hawking. Ed Roberts, who I hope some of you know, went to my high school. In freshman year, he got polio. He overheard the doctor talking to his mother and saying he was going to be a vegetable. And he said, I decided right then, if I was going to be a vegetable, I wanted to be an artichoke. Prickly on the outside with a good heart. When the high school finally relented to allow him to graduate, even though he hadn't completed his PE credits, he went to the University of California, where he had to live in Cal Hospital for the first year. He started the Center for Independent Living, the World Institute on Disability. Just before I met him, he had gone to the Soviet Union, where he had seen 20,000 people with disabilities having started businesses. He said, if they can do it here, why can't we do it at home? And he came and made me promise that I would work with him until that mission of full economic development as the next wave of the disability rights movement was complete. I, of course, acceded to that, figuring he was a force of nature and that he'd do it. He left us shortly after that. Help me redeem my promise. I have everything we know tells us that there are millions of people in this country who can create businesses and jobs and create the new ideas of the future. I believe in them. I believe in the people in this room and the thousands back home that we represent. Each one of you, each one of them is a change agent. Abraham Lincoln said that the fundamental test of a democracy is that every American should have an unfettered start and a fair chance in the race of life. That we needed to elevate the condition of people, to lift artificial weights from all shoulders, to clear the paths of laudable pursuit for all. That is the promise of this country. It is the promise that we need to redeem. So let me talk more about promise. If we think about all those statistics that Andrea and so many others have shared, it looks daunting. But look at where we've come. Look at the power in this room. Look at the idea. I tend to agree with Michael Sheridan that I think victory is inevitable. There are not many ways out, and this is one. It is a win-win for everybody. We're not talking. I can't identify any losers. We bring new people into the economy, and that more vibrant marketplace produces more for all of us. This is the path to growth. This is the solution. I can't believe that almost everybody in this country can't come to believe in that if we can talk clearly enough and loudly enough and with good graphics. Gloria Steinem, in eulogizing Wilma Mankiller, said you knew she was really smart because you could understand every word she said. I think we're capable of getting at least nearly that smart. Money. We have learned that very small incentives actually have a significant effect. And that in many ways, psychological leverage is much greater even than economic leverage of savings. But I am with Lisa Mensa that at the end of the day, it's the money. If you ask, why is it that African Americans, Latinos, Native Americans, so many others excluded from our economy have a few cents in wealth for every dollar whites own? It is because that is the sedimentation, in the immortal words of Melvin Oliver and Tom Shapiro, it is the sedimentation of past discrimination. We need to face up to that structural barrier, and we need to open the doors of opportunity to everybody. 2 years ago, it would have been excessively audacious to talk about turning the upside-down tax code right side up. 400 of you brought that message to 200 offices in Congress yesterday. It is a message that is being heard. It may be an outrageous act and an everyday rebellion to go on that line, but it is something we can do and have to do. And again, almost everybody, I think, would be a winner there. We must turn that $500 billion annual investment in inequality into an investment in the productive capacity of every man, woman, child in this country. I deeply believe it's doable. But if that isn't ambitious enough, I have another idea. Not my idea. None of these ideas are my idea. They all come from the incredible friends I have. In the next 2 weeks, the state of Alaska will send out $1,900 checks to every man, woman, child in the state. It's a function of the Alaska Permanent Fund, which basically taxes the oil wealth of the state and returns it to the citizens on a one-person, one-share basis. I want to read you a statement from the governor who expanded that system, someone you may not recognize as an asset builder. Governor Sarah Palin said, "What we're doing up there is returning a share of resource development dollars back to the people who own the resources. Our Constitution mandates that as you develop resources, it's to be for the maximum benefit of the people, not the corporations, not the government, but the people of Alaska." I think it's time we talk seriously about a national permanent fund for the United States funded out of the carbon absorption capacity of the atmosphere so we could solve global warming and lay a resource base among all our people. The liquidity of the stock market, several things. I commend to you this book by Peter Barnes, who has been working on this for 20 years, With Liberty and Dividends for All, How to Save Our Middle Class When Jobs Don't Pay Enough. Which brings me to movement. And I've thought a lot, and I really can't answer very well, but how does a field and a network become a movement? I think it's through dancing like last night. But I think it's telling what we know, and particularly, as several folks suggested just a moment ago, telling our story, reaching out, and particularly having the hundreds of thousands of people who have benefited from natural and created asset building programs to tell their story to others. You know, yes, the tax code is complicated, and yes, I will never understand a lot of the research methodologies that are building our evidentiary base. But the essential story, the essential values, the essential principles here are stuff we not only do we know, but I think every American knows in their heart. We just need to find a way to raise that up. I do want to reaffirm the commitment of CFED to work with all of you to do whatever we can to nurture your creativity, your outrageous acts, your everyday rebellions. And I want to close with a few paragraphs of Gloria Steinem's speech at the National Press Club, where she received the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the highest civilian award in the country. And before I do that, I want to just tell you the story that I was going to tell in introducing her. I might tell it again in 2 years. But in 1984, Gloria was going to the Democratic Convention in part to try and heal the rift that had occurred between the Geraldine Ferraro backers and the Jesse Jackson backers. And as my wife was turning to the Moscone Center, the African-American policewoman, stopped the car and said, "I'm sorry to stop you, but I had to say thank you, Gloria Steinem. I would not be here today but for you." To be with Gloria for any period of time, you have just the stream of people coming up saying what Dave said, what Dedrick said. But I think that's our business too, is affirming that potential, making sure that we open the doors of opportunity in this country. So Gloria completed her address. How do we move forward? It's not rocket science. We need to worry less about doing what is most important and more about doing whatever we can. Those of us who are used to power need to learn to listen as much as we talk, and those with less power need to learn to talk as much as we listen. The truth is that we can't know what act in the present will make the most difference in the future, but we can behave as if everything matters. Everything we do matters. Nothing is too small or too big to change consciousness. Humans are linked, not ranked. Humans in the environment are linked, not ranked. And remember, the end doesn't justify the means. The means are the ends. If we want dancing and laughter and friendship and kindness in the future, we must have dancing and laughter and friendship and kindness along the way. That is the small and the big of it. At my age, in this still hierarchical time, people often ask me if I'm passing the torch. I explain that I'm keeping my torch, thank you very much, and I'm using it to light the torches of others, because only if each of us has a torch will there be enough light. Your torches are burning bright. Go back and light the torches of others. Thank you.